Hi, and I think you've got a bit of a team with you. Oh, okay. Do you want to yeah, I just want to read it.
Councillors, I might just make a couple of comments before we hand over to Bernard and the team in terms of the report, partly because when we were together as governing body in IMSB, I had a bit of a grizzle towards the chair of the IMSB on this topic. So just a couple of comments before we get into the substance of the report. I'm very conscious that some of the territory in the Te Tautakatini Māori responsiveness reports gets covered in other forums, such as the joint IMSB and governing body meeting. And what's working well, in my view, is that the key leaders, the executive team, Brett O'Reilly in terms of chair of the, as CE of AT, come through and allow a sort of, if you like, a deeper dive into some aspects of the program. So I'm conscious that we don't want to duplicate too much in the reporting. What we have here, if you recall past quarterly reports, you will have had 2 reports on your agenda separately dealing with audit matters, financial aspects and the responsiveness stuff. What we've done is condense it into one integrated report, and we've also come to an understanding with the IMSB that we'll bring that report through, or we'll bring reports through 3 times a year. Okay, so we'll set out a program of work at this front end of the year, we'll do a 6-monthly report, and then we'll do a close off at the end of the year. It's useful in terms of a discipline that the IMSB and others want to see from a governance perspective in terms of expenditure, results, measurable impact and such like. So that's the way the reporting is going to be framed, as an effort to try and streamline things into a space that satisfies the need for governance, but in a reasonably efficient way. So with those introductory comments, I'll hand over to the team who are doing the work.
Thank you. Welcome, team.
Kia ora tātou katoa, tēnei te mihi mai oha ki a koe te chairman, Councillor Webster, ko koutou ngā mema o te komiti nei, nei ngā mihi mahana ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora. First of all, apologies from Johnny Freeland. He's unable to attend the meeting today and has so asked me to lead the team. Just to my left, in terms of introductions, we have Karen Cray, Sarah Howard down the end there for Whai Painga, the new project or program lead, Sancha Jacobs, and sitting at the back is John Hutton and Shane Cook as well. So we'll rotate when and as appropriate regarding some of the questions that you may have. I'll give a quick overview of the report because we'll take it as read and then open it up for questions. So just in terms of the report itself, you will see from the executive summary that we've provided a financial overview of current spend in the program. You'll see that there's a 16% variance in terms of expenditure currently at year to date. A couple of things that have been important for us to do is to ensure that the reporting that we have that comes to this committee and other committees represents our spend at the appropriate times, and we've been through a process with finance to just realign some of our budgets, so some of that work that's occurred won't be represented in this report, but will be there in the second. The second part that's important to note is that in Q3 there are a number of significant activities, as you'll see through the report, that have since taken place since the end of Q2. So hence the variance that you have there, but there'll be an improvement in that in terms of moving forward. Rather than talk about the treaty audit program, I'll talk about that as part of the Whai Tika update. I think though, in terms of the Māori Transformational Shift Activity Overview, you'll see there with the budget sitting at 9.1, this is a significant program for us. There is a mix of activities being completed and various planning that's occurring, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as I go through each of the areas. There is some work, however, that will inform the 16-17 annual plan, and so in terms of that, each of the areas have been looking at those where there may be a shortfall in particular activities of work, and are working to provide information firstly through to the ELT workshop in March, and then obviously that will progress then through the appropriate channels to be received by yourselves. So that will continue as per the process. In terms of Whaidawa, the economic development stream, there's been quite a bit of preparation that has occurred in terms of the significant part that's in the area around the signature event which took place over Auckland Anniversary Weekend. This report doesn't quite reflect that, but we'll have some detailed information for you when it's next appropriate for us to present. There are a range of activities that are supporting Māori economic development that have really focused on bringing the community's attention to the need to focus and have a view on how they might play a part in Māori economic development themselves, and some upskilling, it's fair to say, particularly in the area of financial literacy and business development. That work will be ongoing and is not really affected too much by the annual planning process. In the Whai Painga space, there are, I suppose it's a smaller group of activities, but they have far-reaching consequences. So ensuring that we've got both the planning in place, but also that we're looking beyond just our influence as an organisation is an important part of that work, and which is why it is graduating up its processes. There are a couple of key areas that we will be looking at in particular to put forward as part of the annual plan process. One of those is looking at how we have greater effect on, I suppose, the health and well-being of our younger children who are part of our more poorer communities. And then the second one is the impact that housing obviously has on the whole population, but in particular on those Māori families. So areas that are, very much make common sense to have a look at and take a deeper dive into. From the Whaitiaki space, this is our busiest area of work. There's certainly been a lot of work to coordinate the actual doing of a number of these project areas so that the program itself continues to roll forward. Karen and the team have done a great job in terms of looking at how you don't just look at projects as individual projects, but looking at how they can potentially impact on a wider suite of projects. So there's been some work undergone in terms of the development of teams that focus on specific areas, and Karen may be able to talk to that at a later date if required. Later on in this hui. And then in the Whai Tika space, Sarah and the team have done a lot of work both in the treaty audit space, so ensuring that we're working with IMSB, with internal audit, to follow through on the recommendations, and have developed a group called the Waharoa Group, which looks specifically at how it is that we address each of the recommendations that come out of the IMSB's audit. So that continues to be work in progress. Finally, from the Whaitahinga space, the treaty settlement space, it's a busy time as we try to encourage central government to get through their treaty settlement processes. Once again, rather than having sort of direct influences on those, it's about encouraging the conversations to occur. There have been a number of important watershed meetings in terms of some of those settlement spaces. So Ngāti Rehua have had the Minister over at Great Barrier, and Ngai Tai ki Tāmaki have also had the Minister out at Umapuya Marae out east as well. So John's work in terms of encouraging those settlements to continue on in earnest is an important part of the role that we play. I think the other part is that we continue to grow and mature in terms of our co-governance, co-management activities. There is work that we're needing to speed up to ensure that we hit those budgetary targets by the end of the year. However, you know, there is a lot of work that's occurring in that particular area and with a very small team. So that's the overview of the report as the whole, and we'll hand it back to yourself, Madam Chair, and seek any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much, and I've received an apology from Brett O'Reilly. Thank you. Right, David.
First, I'm happy to move the report.
I'm happy to second it by Councillor Fletcher.
Just a couple of 4 questions.
Yep.
So referring to paragraph 14 and the resolution of the finance performance meeting 2015/119, the discussion that to occur with the activity owners and to be able to apply the resolution regarding reporting of outcomes, when will that be undertaken?
That's actually in process now. We have already have had a couple of meetings with some staff from IMSB, and we have meetings organised for next week where we're actually looking at how it is that we identify the correct model to begin to start making some of these assessments. What we're able to provide at the moment is probably some hard quantitative data, and we can always get the qualitative data if we go out to survey, but I suppose, and if we look back on last week's meeting, one of the key things to follow up was the development of metrics. We've had a meeting also, or been working with Rimu in terms of getting some research perspective on the type of metrics that we should be looking at as well. So we have started some work in this area.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the Māori Cultural Initiative funding, what is it expected to be expended on marae development and papakainga development?
I think it's fair to say that the Cultural Initiative program is the coming together of both papakainga and marae funds that we've had previously. They were equally split. Coming together, there's definitely a need in the marae area, and you know, if we weren't careful, we could end up spending all of the money in that marae area. However, papakainga is something that we continue to work on. It's fair to say that there are some challenges for both iwi and whānau in terms of how they develop up papakainga. So with the work that we're doing to develop that particular part of the cultural initiatives policy, we're suggesting some potential changes to be reviewed, which enables whānau to be supported in the development up of cases for papakainga, as opposed to where it's just focused on at the moment. But that's still work in progress and obviously needs to be reviewed at the right levels.
Okay, Te Hirana Waka Festival, how has that been evaluated, and what is the strategic planning in place to grow the festival next year?
So apologies from Brett in terms of his inability to attend today. Our understanding is that there has been an internal post-event review carried out by ATEED, and we'll look to see what information is available to be able to circulate if that's required. And we understand that there were some surveys that were done at the time that the festival was held. Obviously there must be some further work going on in terms of that, but that's what we've understand has taken place so far.
And lastly, Madam Chair, how will Council evaluate Māori transformational shifts through the Māori Sport and Recreation Plan and Ironman?
So there's a couple of ways that we'll do that. We've already got in place some work with Rimu and with an expert panel to actually look at the metrics that we would use to evaluate the application of the Te Whai Oranga plan across council activities. We've engaged that expert panel, includes people from Massey University, their sport and rec teams, and experts in that particular area. Also Te Wānanga Raukawa have engaged with us in terms of that up until now. With Iron Māori, there are a couple of ways that we'll be looking at that, because it's not focused just at adults, but focused at tamariki and rangatahi as well. We're able to assess both in terms of their satisfaction of the event, but also to have surveys set up to ask them, okay, what brought them to this event? What was their sort of a previous physical activity prior to, and what are their goals coming out of doing the event?
Thank you.
Councillor Casey.
A couple of questions about local boards, as stated in the report. The first is, there are 4 local boards activities outlined in the quarterly report. Was that the only 4 out of 21, or was that the 4 that were doing something in that quarter?
I assume those are at the back of the report.
Yep.
In the financial side?
They're on page 96 and 97.